Alright, how's it going? So I wanted to address things that haven't been addressed about AlphaDestiny's lift claims. So I'm gonna address his rack pull, his past bench claims, his deadlift. He claimed he has a stronger bench than Johnny Candito, which he didn't actually, back then at least. And mainly his overhead press, which actually was a push press, most likely, which is actually a main reason why I'm making this video. I'm gonna save it for the last, but his overhead press, his 225 overhead press was most likely a push press. And his response to not strong enough. Although I see some double standards when it comes to not strong enough, you know, Alex is excused for the stuff that he said because he was still a teenager, yet not strong enough is getting shit for trolling him, even though he's the same age as Alex was when he was making these claims. So I see some double standards here. First of all, I want you to excuse my English because it's not my first language, but I actually was a foreign exchange student in the US for a year, so I can understand it pretty clearly, but you can probably tell that English isn't my first language, so please excuse that. Also keep in mind, I'm really not used to speaking in front of camera, so I may seem a little awkward now at first, but hopefully it will get better by time. I'm pretty new at this, so let me put my +6 head of no bullshitting, and let's talk about this.
Okay, now that the cringe intro is over, let me start off with these rack pulls. And I also want to say that I'm not completely against rack pulls. Actually, I take it back. I think if you're using equipment that isn't yours, you should be always pulling off the blocks. If you're using your own equipment and you don't mind damaging it, then you can do whatever the hell you want. But if you're using equipment that isn't yours, you should be always pulling off the blocks. Because block pulls may have its uses in certain scenarios, in certain situations, but most people, especially his followers, are using them for the wrong reasons. So, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to call them rack pulls anyway, and let me start off with this video. So let's get started.
Check it out, it should help you out a lot, and I explained why it's superior to the deadlift and the rack pull below the knee. It comes down to the stretch and isometric contraction. And I'll tell you guys, man, like, I couldn't believe how strong I was today because I had a flu for 2 weeks, for 2 freaking weeks, yet I come in and hit an all-time PR. And you're going to see what that PR is very soon. So this is 1,015. I'm still warming up, of course.
Okay, what the hell is this? This is not a rack pull. This is some kind of lift he invented himself. Rack pulls are usually done the same way as deadlift, except they're higher. Now obviously you still start with slightly more upright position than denting from the floor, but you still start with a lean over position like you would do from the deadlift. So this isn't a rack pull, this is some kind of lift he invented himself. This is basically a partial squat with a bar in his hands. Rack pulls, let me just show. So let's see this video.
Good for bar control. You're gonna pull straight.
See, this is how you actually do rack pulls. Now he's lower, but even if he was higher, he would still start in a lean over position. Let's look for another video. Let's see Scott Herman, who, even though he endorses Alex, he actually doesn't correct him. So let's just find it. See, even when you're this high, like above the knees, you still start with a lean over position. If Alex did it like this, there's absolutely no way he would pull 1,000 pounds. He might not even get 800, maybe 800 at the most. Now let's finish this off.
Flies up fairly easily. And let's try something crazy. 1,105 pounds. So I shake that motherfucker and then boom, all the plates come flying off. Because the shaking technique is easier. You can lift a lot more weight. But fuck, man. Like it can only handle. Try it again, but let's do this, man. Let's do it. Oh, god damn. 1,105 pounds, beltless. Who the fuck is doing that on the internet? You know, I've looked it up. There's barely anybody who's lifting this type of weight, man. I'm telling you, like, there's some serious truth behind what I'm doing. That's why I got.
Okay, now you see he's bragging about his 1,000-pound rack pulls. Just because nobody else does it doesn't mean they wouldn't be capable lifting that much if they use the same style of rack pulling as he does. Because most people, even powerlifters who use rack pulls, they don't use them the same way as he does. First of all, in rack pulls, they use them with some range of motion, and again, they start with a lean over position. Bragging about this lift and nobody else does is equivalent of bragging about this. Oh look, who does this? Nobody else does this. This must be the strongest guy in the world because nobody else does it. Now here is the biggest irony of all of this. He says he doesn't do it to improve his deadlift, he does it for his upper back and traps. But the ironic part is that the technique he uses on his rack pulls actually use less emphasis on the upper back and more on his legs. So, which is ironic because he doesn't want to train legs because he thinks his legs are too big. And again, like rack pulls like this, for example, actually still use more upper back than rack pulling like this. Because you actually have to extend with your back, so your back is actually doing some work. Most of your work is done by your legs. Again, pretty ironic. He wants to train his back and wants to neglect his legs because his legs are too big. So, now obviously he's still not gonna build legs from this because it's still like 1% range of motion even from legs. So we're not gonna build your legs even from this. But still, like he says, he feels his squats from this. Now the funny part is that he actually complains about bent bars, even though he's doing all those rack pulls. And he said that he didn't bend them, that there was only one bent bar that was supposedly bent before he was even doing those rack pulls. And that it's the only bar he uses for rack pulls because it's already bent. That's actually not the truth. He actually admitted of bending some of them without even realizing it. And let me show you some evidence for that. So, in his 585 sumo hitched deadlift, oops.
Let's fucking get it.
See here, he's basically like here is a bent bar, as you can see, and the guy was saying that somebody was using for rack pulls and Alex gave him a heart. He basically admitted that he bent this bar right here. And another evidence for that is right here. Let me just find his comment where he said, so here he claims that he wasn't doing rack pulls back then, that he would do below the knee and 400s at the most. But if we go down here, he says that he was doing heavy rack pulls. Now, if he's doing a heavy rack pull, I'm assuming he's using more than 400 pounds. So, either way, he's lying here, or it's just that his memory isn't that great. So, it's either one of those choices. Now, I want to show this. Now, first of all, this stuff with sickness, I will also address it later. Because for some reason, all his best PRs are done after he was sick, or after he played volleyball for 5 hours on the sun or whatever. Oh, speaking of that, a little bit about myself. I actually work as a tennis coach, and I'm on the sun on average for 4 hours every single day. So I never even thought about using that as an excuse, but maybe I can now, so whatever. But here's another example where he was complaining about bent bars again and bending them at the same time. So let's look at this.
The full body work. I had. So this is 315. Boom. Let's get it. Yeah. And I'm using a different barbell this time. It's actually, it rolls a lot in my hands. So that's another problem. Like if you go to commercial gym, you're probably using cheap bars. And especially if you rack pull with them, they might bend and stuff. So like, be careful what you're using, dude. And for me personally, that's why the vast majority of the time I end up pulling with straps. Because it's just suboptimal using no straps. I mean, these bars are just terrible quality. They have really bad knurling. They roll constantly. Like hell, even with straps, bro, the weight slips out of your hands. So I think commercial gyms need to improve their barbells, man, because this is not optimal for doing heavy pulls or even bench. It's just a terrible thing. So that's 765 right there. That's my previous best. I did that like 2 months ago. 15. Do you remember last week? Let's see if I can get it now. You go to a commercial gym, you're probably using cheap bars. And especially if you rack pull with them, they might bend and stuff. So I mean, these bars are just terrible quality they have. So I think commercial gyms need to improve their barbells, man.
Okay, so now imagine if you were a gym owner and somebody was doing this, what you just saw, and then he would tell you that you have bad bars and you should invest in better bars. How would you react to that? I actually want you to comment below and comment like, how would you react? What would you do if somebody did that? He damages your bars and he tells you that you need to invest in better bars. Now let me address when he was constantly getting sick. So
225 after having a flu for 2 weeks.
So here he supposedly get 225 after he had the flu for 2 weeks. Now let's look when he had that flu. So here is after he had a flu. Let's look at the videos. So
Functional training. So I want to know, are you training so that you can get better at picking up bags out the fucking...
he doesn't look like he has a flu. Let's look for another videos.
Yo, your performance. You're getting progressive overload. Back pain all the time, and I was thinking about getting
he
him
doesn't
to do...
look like he has a flu.
What's going on, guys? 9 sets of 3.
Again, doesn't look like he has a flu. If you look at the dates of these videos, you can see he was doing them almost every day when he supposedly had a flu. So, okay, now let's look at this one.
So you maxed out the dumbbell stack, and now you don't know what to do. It's you. If you're tired of lifting bitch weight because of your adjustable weight on each side, like this, like I'm demonstrating.
What's going on, guys? Today I want to teach you how to make the rack pull.
Okay, so he doesn't look like he's sick at all. Okay, actually he does, but in a different way. But he doesn't look like he has a flu. You know, when someone has a flu, you can usually tell. They usually look tired, they low on energy. You can even hear it in their voice. You can usually tell when someone has a flu. He doesn't look like he has a flu at all. Now, technically, he didn't lie. Because he didn't say when he had a flu, right? And that's the same backpedaling BS he always uses. Just like he promised a 6-plate deadlift, and then suddenly he does a hack deadlift, and then he say, oh, well, I didn't say what style of deadlift it is. And this is the same thing. He didn't say when he had a flu, right? He could have had a flu like 1 year before he did record his video, right? So technically he didn't lie, but it's still being dishonest. Now let me address his deadlift.
The goal is to pull 600 by 2017. So I got like 6 months left to do it. So I'll be...
Okay. Now this is the most I've ever seen him to ever pull on a conventional deadlift. But I've gotta say, it's a legit. You know, no straps, no hitching. There is obviously a form breakdown, like he rounds his back and his hips shoot up, but it's okay, you know, it was a legit lift. because everyone's form breaks down when they're lifting near max weight. But the point is, he claims that it was easy and that he did 4 reps with 495 without deficit on the other day, which of course there is no video of that. And look at this last sentence. Look how he says how he's not a liar. Keep in mind, this was way before any of these channels called him out. This was before the Nether thing, this was before these other channels called him out, and this was before even Blah had his beef with him. Yet he for some reason need to say that he's not a liar. I wonder why. Well, probably because people were questioning me in the comment section ever since. And there's probably a reason why were people constantly questioning him. You don't see people questioning guys like Omar Isaf or Candito or Alan Troll or most of these other YouTubers. But him, people were questioning him ever since, before any of these channels called him out. But again, why does he have a need to say he's not a liar?
And your mind, I understand, okay? So, like I said, everything I say, I'm not a bullshitter. I know there are some liars out there, and your mind, I understand that you'd be a bit skeptical, but you have to trust me when I say that these are the numbers. So I hope this seals the coffin, like puts the nail in the coffin, and we can move on from this topic. From now on, I will not do any straight weight deadlifts until 2017, when you see me pull 6 plates or 600 pounds. And also ways of improving my deadlift, I might incorporate
Okay, so first of all, why does he have a need to say he's not a bullshitter without anybody even asking? Let's say if I have absolutely zero reason to doubt him, zero reason to question him or not believe him, the moment he says he's not a bullshitter, that's the moment I start becoming skeptical. Because if somebody is not a bullshitter, he doesn't have a need to say I'm not a bullshitter without anyone even asking. So again, why does he need to say that? But anyway, speaking of his deadlift, he says how it was easy, and in his clarification video, which he did a few months ago, he said that it was like RP 7.5.
I ended up pulling 495 times 4 conventional, and then a week later I did 495 times 1 off a deficit, and it was maybe like an RPE 7.5. So I probably could have tripled that weight realistically.
Now let's look at it again, RPE 7.5, and he said that he can do 3 reps with this. So let's look at this again. Now let's compare it to my notice the speed. I cannot do more than 3 reps with this weight. Again, let's compare it with, remember, we're not comparing the weight, we're comparing the speed of the rep. Now just let's look at this. Now tell me, does this look like RPE 7.5? Does this look like something you can do 3 reps with? Because to me, it looks like RPE 9 plus at least. Now, maybe it's not RPE 10, maybe it's not like a true 100% max, but it definitely looks close. It doesn't look like you can do 3 reps with this. This actually looks pretty heavy. Now, let's compare it to my actual max. So, now, this I cannot do more than 1 rep with this. Now, I think I had a little bit left in the tank, but I definitely cannot do more than 1 rep with this. Let's compare the speed again. Now, to be fair, I'm naturally very explosive. I don't know if it's my genetics or that the fact that I come from athletic background. So for me, even my 1 rep max, even my grinders look relatively fast. But even then, like, this looks way too heavy to be RPE 7.5. Like, this looks almost like a max. This doesn't look like he had 2 reps left in the tank. Now, he promised that 6 plate deadlift, and even though he said that it wasn't 600 but 6 plate, Well, he didn't get 6-plate deadlift either. He did a 6-plate hack deadlift, but that's a different lift, and we know that it can add as much as 200 pounds. And again, keep in mind that 585 hack deadlift was almost a year before he did a 585 hitched sumo deadlift. He could have added absolutely nothing to his deadlift for all we know. Because if you use a different variation, there's gonna be different standards, different muscles used, different leverages, different range of motion. You can compare different lifts. If you want to show how stronger you got, it has to be done on the same lift. And again, this isn't about conventional versus unconventional lifts. This is about simply using a different lift. For example, back squat is a conventional lift, right? But most people can actually lift more on back squat than front squat. And that's why you don't compare back squat to a front squat. And if someone, let's say, he can front squat 400, and then he does 450 back squat, he cannot claim that, oh, I just added 50 pounds to my back squat. And by the same token, you cannot say that, if somebody back squats 450, you can't say that he's stronger than someone who front squats 400. Someone who can front squat 400 can probably back squat even more than 450. Same thing with a bench. Most people can do more on a decline bench than on a flat bench. So let's say I can flat bench 275, and then I do a decline bench and I use 315. I can't say, oh, I just added 40 pounds to my bench press. So for all we know, he added absolutely nothing to his deadlift. All he did was just a different lift. When he did that 585 hack deadlift, his deadlift could have been the same as is here, for all we know, maybe even lower. We don't know because he just used a different lift, but he showed absolutely nothing of proof that he gained anything to his deadlift. Now let's look at this.
So you gotta raise your deadlift the AlphaDestiny way. And why am I qualified to give such advice? Well, I added 130 pounds to my pull off the floor in less than 4 months. I did it beltless, drug-free, and as a manlet with bad genetics.
So, okay, he was just straight up lying there. He didn't add anything to his deadlift for all we know. All he did was just a different lift. Again, I could say, let's say I can front squat 300, and then I back squat 400, and then I say, oh, look, I just added 100 pounds to my squat. Or let's say I can flat bench 275, and then I do a decline bench with 315, and then say, oh, I just added 40 pounds to my bench press. Even like not strong enough himself, he can say, he can do a deadlift, like 600, then do 800 hack deadlift, which he did, and then say, oh, look, I just added 200 pounds to my deadlift. Now, here is his interview with Pete Rubish, where he told him that he's a 585 puller based off his hack deadlift. And keep in mind, this was almost a year before he did that 585 hitched sumo deadlift, right? See it. And so let's look at this.
Alex does.
Like, look, I'm only like a 585 puller, so I'm nothing special. But I could do 1,035 above the knee. So there's a big difference here. So I'm wondering how much you could do given your stats.
Yeah, I don't need.
Okay, so he told him that he is a 585 puller again based off his hack deadlift. Well, first of all, you're talking to a powerlifter. It's pretty obvious that you're talking in a powerlifting realm. You don't say that you're a 300 bencher based off decline bench. Usually when you say how much you bench press, you tell it based off flat bench. And the same thing with deadlift. Do you honestly think Pete Rubish thought of hack deadlift or trap bar deadlift? Because obviously Alex didn't say what style of deadlift it was. So again, technically he didn't lie. But again, I'm pretty sure Pete thought that it's powerlifting standard deadlift. And speaking of that rack pull, I already addressed that in the beginning. I'm pretty sure that Pete doesn't do rack pulls the way Alex does. Even when he did that above the knee rack pull, he probably did that still with more range of motion, and also he probably started with a lean over position like he would do in a deadlift, instead of what Alex does where he leans back and does it completely upright. So imagine if Alec, from Not Strong Enough, actually told Pete Rubish that he's 800-pound puller. Think of how ridiculous that would be, because he would thought it's, competition style deadlift, And again, 800 pounds at his age would be just insane. So nobody says that he's a how much he deadlifts, how much he's a puller based off a different variation. Now, if you want to say how much you lift on a different variation, you need to specify. For example, I can front squat this much, I can hack deadlift this much, I can Jefferson deadlift this much. But when you say I can deadlift whatever, people are gonna assume that it's based off a regular deadlift. When you say how much you bench press, people are going to assume based off a flat bench press. Because again, I can claim how much I bench based off my decline bench, and it's gonna be more than my flat bench. So again, that's very misleading. Now, another ironic part is he chooses hack deadlift and all these other deadlift variations because he thinks he's gonna injure his lower back from conventional deadlift. Well, he also doesn't want to train his legs because he thinks they're too big, and a hack deadlift actually puts a little less emphasis on posterior chain and little more emphasis on quads. It's basically almost like a hack squat. So again, if he doesn't want to train his legs because they're too big, why is he choosing the hack deadlift variation? Then he does all those cheat rows, which actually puts probably even more stress on lower back than conventional deadlift, because all that jerking motion you do when you're cheating, you're using a lot of your lower back and it's under a lot of stress. And the fact that you never put the weight on the ground, it's under that constant pressure, under that constant stress. Whereas on conventional deadlift, you always reset every rep, and that stress goes off your lower back for a second. Now let's address his 585 sumo deadlift. And he actually he used straps and he hitched, which means that even after almost 2 years, he still didn't get a promised 6-plate deadlift. Now, keep in mind, I actually personally know an amateur strongman who competes in strongman and powerlifting at the same time. Although he prioritizes strongman training, he still does powerlifting meets from time to time. And his deadlift in powerlifting competition, actually it was a push-pull meet, it was deadlift competition, and he got 260 kilograms. And in strongman meet, where it's allowed to hitch and use straps, he did 280 kilograms. And he actually told me that as long as you get it to the knee level and you're allowed to hitch, you will always get it. So hitching and straps made a 20 kilo difference to him. That's almost 45 pounds. So if he did 585 with hitching and straps, his deadlift without straps and hitching could be around 540 to 550. So again, it can make as much as 40 pounds difference. Now, he makes an excuse that, well, it's allowed in strongman competition, right? Well, first of all, strongman competition don't allow sumo deadlift, and second of all, they allow deadlift suits, which actually isn't raw. Now, the strongman I was talking about, he did it without a deadlift suit, but you shouldn't use a strongman deadlift as a standard, because again, they are allowed to use deadlift suits, so it's not even raw. You shouldn't use that as a standardized deadlift. Also, keep in mind that straps will allow you to lift more regardless of your grip strength, and that's because you gotta have a tighter grip no matter what. If you use straps, no matter how strong your grip is, it's almost like you become the part of the barbell, so that way it becomes easier. And there is a reason why even strongmen, professional strongmen, can lift more with straps, because we know that strongmen, they have stronger grips than anyone else, yet they can still lift more with straps. This is assuming if you have strong grip. If you have strong grip, you will still be able to pull more with straps. If you have a weak grip, then it's gonna make even more of a difference. Now, another ironic part is when he uploaded that 585 hack deadlift, people were calling him out like didn't you promise a regular deadlift? And he was like no, I didn't say what type of deadlift it is. And like a lot of people were like talking stuff, and he says that his hack deadlift is even more legit than a sumo deadlift, and how sumo shouldn't even be legit. So he kind of talked crap about sumo deadlift, and here we see him use a sumo deadlift. He most likely used a sumo deadlift because he can lift more than conventional, even though he used to talk crap about this. Now I would show you that 585 hack deadlift on those comments, but unfortunately he deleted that video, just like many other videos, so I can't show it. But let's look some math in here. So he pulled 585 with sumo, on sumo with straps and hitching. Now let's take away the straps and hitching. Without straps and hitching, his sumo deadlift would be around between 540 to 550. Now let's assume that on sumo deadlift he can maybe lift 20 pounds more than on conventional deadlift. So let's say his sumo deadlift is maybe 540 to 550, subtract 20 pounds, and we have 520 to 530 conventional deadlift with a belt, by the way, because we didn't take away the belt, we only took away the straps and hitching. So again, 520 to 530 conventional deadlift, which is same as here. Because based on this, what I see here, I'm going to estimate his deadlift around 520 to 530. And so again, he added absolutely nothing to his deadlift. Maybe a little bit, maybe okay, this is all just estimation, so maybe he added a little bit but nothing significant. Maybe he didn't add anything at all, and maybe he even lost strength from his deadlift, because this estimation I used assuming he uses a belt, and if he take away another 20 pounds from his belt, that's like 500 pound beltless deadlift, which is less than here based on his deficit deadlift. So okay, here is another video where he made a video about calculators being inaccurate, and that was basically his excuse of why he wasn't capable of pulling 600 despite being able to supposedly do 9 reps with 495. So let's start this clip.
Everybody who said, oh, Alex is full of shit, fuck every single one of you, man. Honesty, integrity, honor, like all these things are very important to me, all right? These are probably the top values in my existence, right? I love, like, being honest is what the fuck I do. I'm one of the realest guys around, okay? So never say shit like that to me again, all right? So 500 for 9. I'm going to put the clip on the screen. You have to understand, this is my first time ever doing it in 2.5 years, okay? Literally the first time doing sumo deadlift. And I didn't post it because, number one, my friend didn't film the first rep, so it makes it look like I did 8 fucking reps. Then on the last rep, which was supposed to be the 10th, I actually failed it. I couldn't lock the damn weight out, and it looks really ugly. So I thought, okay, this is going to be a bad clip to post as a feat of strength, you know? And then finally, like, the technique wasn't on point either. Again, it was my first time ever doing it, and I know powerlifters going to come in and fucking blast my ass and shit. So definitely I'm a noob to the sumo deadlift. But there's
Okay, so first of all, he says how he's the realest guy. Well, every realest guy I've ever knew never had a need to say how he's the realest guy. They let it know through their actions. Someone who has a need to say he's the realest guy usually isn't the realest guy. Like, again, let's say I will know nothing about him. I have zero doubts, zero reason to doubt him. And then he says to me that he's the realest guy. That's the moment I start becoming skeptical. Because again, why does he have a need to say that? Let it know through your actions. If you are the realest guy, you don't need to say it. But anyway, he did that supposedly 9 reps with 500 pounds. There's something really fishy about this. And let's look at someone like Johnny Candito, who did 10 reps with 500. So let's look at this. So as you can see, he did 10 reps with 500. So keep in mind, this is only a month in between. See, this was in January on the same year, and this was on February. You're not gonna gain a lot of strength in just 1 month. You may peak at the most, but you're not gonna gain 50 pounds from peaking. So Candito has 1 rep. He can do 1 more rep on 500-pound deadlift than Alex, yet he out deadlifts him by almost 100 pounds. This just doesn't make any sense. Either it wasn't 500 or he wasn't really doing full reps, because you can really see that well, but I honestly think that some of his reps weren't completely locked out, so he didn't do a full reps. But anyway, I don't believe that he did 9 reps with 500. Again, those calculators, yes, they aren't completely accurate, but they're not gonna be off by 50 or 100 pounds. If you do more than 10 rep max, they're gonna be a little off. But if you do like 5 to 10 rep max, they're not gonna be off more than 30 pounds. So this is just an excuse why he didn't get that 600 or even 585. And let's actually use some of these calculations. So my 3 rep max is 225 kilos on deadlift and 245 kilos on 1 rep max. So let's put 225 times 3. And as you can see, it's pretty close. It's only off by 3 kilos, right? So I got 245, which is my max, and it's only off by 3 kilos. Now let's put Canditos. So he did 500 times 10, 667. So as you can see, it's off by 12 pounds, but it's not gonna be that off. It's pretty close anyway. So, but again, it's not off by 50 pounds or 100 pounds. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So again, if someone can do 9 reps with 500, and this is assuming he does a dead stop every single rep, so he doesn't do touch and go or any of the cheating bullshit, he should be able to pull at least 600 without even needing to peak. Like, he doesn't even need to do peaking cycle. Now let's look at this again.
I'm a noob to the sumo deadlift, but then into the calculators, guess what? They're all wrong again. Every single one of them is wrong, including the O'Connor. They're all fucking wrong. All of them. Every PR is wrong. So stop relying on these goddamn one max calculators.
No. If you could do 8 reps with 500, yes, your numbers should be around this. Like, you should be able to pull at least 600 if you can do 8 reps with 500. So no, I don't buy his excuse. Again, I know plenty of powerlifters, and I can see what they can lift based on their rep work. So again, I don't believe he did 8 reps with 500, unless he cheated in some way, like he didn't lock out every rep, or I don't know. It just, there's absolutely no way he wouldn't be able to pull at least 600 if he can do 8 reps with 500. And it is what it is. Again, there's something really fishy about his 500 times 9 deadlift. Now, I also want to show this from which showed not strong enough. I want you to look at his straps. This was in 2012, so he was around 17 years old in here. And look at his straps. He was early intermediate, as he claims, and he actually already has a decent straps. He doesn't have a bad trap genetics, as he claims. And if he made gains, as he claims, as he did, having traps like this would actually make sense. Now, I chose this picture because he doesn't use any special trap pose, doesn't use any special pose, doesn't really flex his traps, so it's a fair comparison. So assuming he made some gains since then, like overall gains everywhere, and keep in mind, since he was only 17, he would probably made some gains anyway as a result of growing up, because you're not even a full-grown adult when you're 17. So looking at his straps, he would have traps like he has, probably even if he never did a single rack pull in his entire life. That picture he showed, his before and after on his straps, he showed picture when he looked like a skinny novice where he didn't look like he lifts. When you're a skinny novice, you're gonna be small everywhere. Of course he had small traps back then. So he doesn't have bad strap genetics as he claims. In fact, he has high traps insertions, which makes his traps higher, and his shoulders, like he's actually kind of narrow. Like, look at his videos and look how big his head is relative to his shoulders and his overall shoulder width. So again, he doesn't have bad strap genetics at all, as he claims, because again, in here he probably wasn't doing any rack pulls at all, nor he was promoting them. Yet he already has decent traps, so he would gain these traps no matter what. Now let's watch Not Strong Enough's video again.
Says, imagine if I cut today. Well, he did do a cut fairly recently. Here is the after picture of his cut, and what you'll notice is it says 160 pounds. So, approximately the same body weight at approximately the same body fat, and mathematically that means that in 5 to 6 years he gained approximately 0 pounds of muscle mass. But wait, I don't know if you guys remember, but at some point he remeasured his height and he somehow grew an inch or two. So if we rework that equation, he actually lost muscle mass. Or, let me throw this at you, maybe he lied about his before stats. Maybe he lied about his after stats. Maybe he lied about his height. Maybe he lied about everything.
Now let's watch Alex's response to that.
Now this guy also had the balls to say that I haven't made any gains in 5 years. He used a picture of me at the end of my cut when I was 160 pounds without any carbohydrates in my diet. Yeah, at the end I did keto. That's what I did, because the carbs kept putting me in a calorie surplus. So I did full-on keto. I was having like 30 grams of carbs a day, okay? I had no muscle glycogen. I was completely flat. And he uses a picture of me where it's blurred, right? And I have no muscle glycogen in my system, when that's not even my final form. The reality is that I've gained an incredible amount of muscle.
Okay, so Alex just nitpicked what was convenient for him. Alex just said that he had the same stats before as he has now, which means there are two possibilities. A, he lied about his previous stats, or B, he made no gains. Now, if he did make his gains, as he claims, it means he lied about his stats, because he was same body weight at similar body fat, and he isn't that leaner than in that before picture. If you compare it, he isn't that much leaner. So I'm gonna say I think he did make gains, but that also means that he most likely lied about his previous stats. And then in this video he says that he chooses a bad picture of him. There's really not that much of a huge difference, to be honest, between those. So I'm not sure what he's arguing against. Also, one thing I forgot about his hack deadlift. He says how he doesn't get 200 pounds from hack deadlift. Well, first time he pulled 585, and then after some time he did 655. Well, if you're doing a new lift that you haven't done before, it's gonna feel awkward at first, and of course you're not gonna be that strong on it. He probably had gained like 60 pounds from his hack deadlift the first time he did it, which is still pretty significant. His conventional deadlift was like 520 to 530, and then he did a hack deadlift with 585. Whenever you introduce a new lift, again, it's gonna feel awkward at first, but then you're gonna start to make relatively fast progress. But you're not really getting muscle, and you're not really getting stronger or anything else. You're just making neural adaptations to that specific movement pattern. Like, for example, I've never done a hack deadlift before, If I did a hack deadlift now, of course I wouldn't get 200 pounds instantly from it. But then when I start training it regularly, I will make relatively fast progress, and after a time, maybe it's gonna make 150 to 200 pounds difference between my conventional and hack deadlift. And that's what happened to him. The first time he got only 60 pounds from it because he was doing it for the first time. And then after some time of training it, then it made like maybe 150 pounds difference between his conventional deadlift and hack deadlift. So, and again, whenever you introduce a new lift, you're gonna make relatively fast progress on it at first because you're making neural gains to this specific movement pattern, but you're not really getting stronger or anything else, and you're not really getting muscle during that period of time. That usually lasts few weeks, and after that you have to gain muscle to keep getting stronger. Again, this happens to all lifts that you haven't done in a long time, but again, you're not really getting stronger. You're just getting more efficient at that specific movement. Now, let me address his bench press. So, first I'm gonna start, he made a video critiquing Johnny Candito's bench, and he basically said that he's stronger bencher than Johnny Candito, which was absolutely not true at the time. So, here, as you can see, he claims he's stronger than Johnny Candito on the bench press, which was not true. He was not capable of benching 315 at the time. Now, he can do it now, but just because he can do it now doesn't mean he was capable of doing it back then. Now, here you see that he tells him that he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing when it comes to bench press. That's actually pretty disrespectful. You know, you pretending to be his friend, and then you taking these shots at him. And I actually saw more of these low-key shots at Johnny like this. And at that time, Johnny was stuck at 315 bench press for a year, and Alex supposedly gave him an advice and also claimed just here how he's stronger on the bench press. Now Alex, at that time, he did a 315 times 3 on the bench press, but he bounced every single rep and he lifted his ass off the bench on every single rep. And a third rep was a complete grinder. If you're bouncing every single rep and you're lifting your ass off the bench and you're doing only 3 reps with this, I can guarantee you cannot do even a 1 rep with a pause with it. Now, I would show you the video, but again, unfortunately, just like many other videos, he deleted it, and that 315 times 3 bench was also supposedly after he had a flu. So again, all his best lifts are after he is sick for some reason. Maybe he's actually getting stronger after he's getting sick, I don't know, maybe he's getting sick on purpose. So during that time, the best he done on camera was 315 times 3 with bouncing off the chest and lifting his ass off the bench every single rep. Now in here, 2 years ago, he already claimed that he has a 350 bench press. See, he's basically saying that 205 overhead press to 350 bench press is a weak ratio. And he's right, usually someone who has 350 bench can usually overhead press more. But the thing is, he couldn't even overhead press 205. This was actually a push press, which I'm going to show later. But here he already claimed 350 bench press and he refused to record it. So again, just because he can do it now doesn't mean he could do it back then when he claimed it. I mean, anyone can claim a lift that he cannot do right now, refuse to do it because I don't care about conventional lifts, then get stronger in 2 years, maybe even use some special supplements, and then I'm like, oh look, I just proved you wrong. No, he didn't. His current bench press doesn't prove anything, considering he was claiming it years ago. If he could do it back then, I can guarantee he would record it. Just like now, when he can do a good lift, impressive lift, he records it immediately because it helps his channel. Like, he gets a lot of praise for his current bench press, and the same thing would be back then. It would help his channel already, and he would get a lot of praise, so why wouldn't he record it? He was always making excuses for not recording it, and when he knows he's capable of doing it, he's gonna record it, just like his current lifts that are legit. He always records it, but when he knows he can't do it, he always comes up with excuses of why he doesn't record it. Now here you can see he claimed that he warmed up with a 335 pause bench mid-legal, and that his mid-legal bench is about 345. And that was like, again, more than a year ago. This, it says 10 months ago, but as you can see, the date when I took this picture, it was in May. So it was more like 15 months ago. And he was doing exclusively, training with slingshot and bands. And he claimed that he warmed up with a 335 mid-legal bench, and that he could do 345 mid-legal, and that he will film it very soon. Of course, he didn't film it. And now after a year, he finally got the number. But now I'm gonna say that now, despite the fact that he did a cut, his bench is actually strong as he's ever been. He wasn't a 350 bencher a year ago. Recently, when he did a 347 bench in competition, he also did a 335 bench off the pins. Well, last year, when he was supposedly stronger, he actually did 295. And again, it looked like a 1 max, like a grinder. Now, yes, benching off the pins is more difficult than even pause bench, but it's definitely doesn't make a 50 pounds difference. So let me show you. In here, he did a 335 pin press, and he also did a triple with 315. In here, which was a year ago, I can find the original video of this, but he did, when he was supposedly stronger than he is now, he did a 295, basically 1 max. Look at this. That look basically like his max. And if you compare it to this, looks around the same. So he actually is stronger now than he was a year ago. Again, he's capable of doing the lifts he's doing now, but what he claimed years ago, he wasn't capable of doing it back then, because last year his max on his spin press was 295, and he also did a triple with 275 with a third rep with a complete grinder, and again lifting his ass off the bench. So yeah, doing a triple with 275 on the pin press, that puts your max around 295. So his max on regular pause bench back then was probably somewhere in the low 300s. Now he can do it now. Now he can do more, obviously, but it doesn't mean he could do it back then. And he did a 365. Again, he bounces off the chest and lifts his ass off the bench. Well, if you bouncing in, because keep in mind it wasn't even a touch and go. He literally bounced it at 365 last year. He bounces off the chest. Again, his pause bench could have been in the low 300s. Maybe it could have been up to 320, but he certainly wasn't a 350 bencher even last year, let alone 2 years ago. So he absolutely wasn't capable of doing the lifts back then when he was claiming them. Again, he can do them now, but anyone can claim lifts that he can't do, then get stronger in 3 years and then say, oh, I just proved you wrong. Now, what a strange coincidence is that now he's making these bench gains after he actually started training legit pause bench. Because last year, he wasn't doing any raw benching at all. At least he didn't show it. He was doing exclusively with slingshot and bands. So even though he did a 365, bouncing it off the chest and lifting his ass off the bench, when you're bouncing it, you are literally skipping the bottom part of the range of motion. And since he was doing all the slingshot stuff, he got probably pretty strong on the lockout, but he wasn't training the bottom. So if he skips the bottom, so he could bounce even 365. But again, his legit bench was probably still in the low 300s. And yeah, he's actually stronger despite the fact that he did a cut. I actually think he basically made it as an excuse as why he's supposedly weaker when he's actually not. He's actually even stronger than he was last year in his bear mode. Now last year he was doing all the videos he showed was exclusively with bands and slingshot and partials, obviously. Now first of all, what is the point of this? Now first of all, slingshot works pretty much the same way as reverse bands. It pushes you up. Bands like this work the opposite way. It pulls the weight down. So if you're using slingshot and bands at the same time, they literally cancel each other out. So what's the fucking point of this? Like, even someone who uses bands never does this. Even Westsiders don't do this. Like, I can guarantee if a Westsider looked at this, he would just facepalm. Like, again, this is plus, this is minus, they cancel each other out. So again, and keep in mind, I'm not like dogmatic, like he likes to call it. Like bands and slingshot may have its uses if they're used rather sparingly, but using them like this at the same time, I don't know, I think I'm just lost a few of my brain cells. But anyway.
What about my strict 225-pound overhead press? Why don't you mention that? Huh?
Now let me finish this off with his overhead press, which he claims that it was not a push press. And his evidence is basically showing it in super slow motion, but still not showing the full rep. So let's see his evidence that it wasn't a push press.
And you know what? I'm going to put the clip on the screen for you in super slow motion. I slowed it down over 200%. This is the slowest possible clip that you can imagine, okay? And you will very, very clearly see that there is no dipping down of the legs, and you can see where the bar is starting. If it was a push press, it would be much higher, okay? It's not a push press, guys. I swear to you on my honor, and I'm never going to apologize for something that isn't true. But let's get this ultimate PR now, shall we?
Okay, so this is his proof that it was not a push press. As you can see, the bar is moving, it's blurry. He still didn't show the full rep. Let's show my proof that my overhead press wasn't a push press. Now let's watch it also in super slow motion. As you can see, there's no dipping in the legs, no leg drive, so it was absolutely not a push press, right? Well, now let's look at the original. As you can see, I can very easily make it look like a strict press. As long as I get it to my my chin level, like here. Now from now on, nobody can tell I did a push press, right? Because my legs are fully locked at this moment, and if I show footage just from this, nobody can tell I did a push press, right? So let's see. See? Let's look at the other push presses and make them look like a strict press. So here, so you can clearly see that is a push press. Now let's make it look like a strict press. So let's put it in slow motion. Let's pause right here. Now let's pretend that the video starts here. Now let's look at this. Ignore what you just saw and pretend here is the start of the video. Oh, look, doesn't look like a push press, right? As you can see, it was a push press. He clearly says that it's a push press. Now let's make it into a strict press. Let's put it in slow motion. Let's pause right here. And let's pretend that the footage starts right here. Let's completely ignore what you just saw. And let's pretend this is the start of the rep. Now let's start. As you can see, from here, if this is where the video starts, you cannot tell that he did a push press. Now let's compare all our presses. I chose Alex's, my, you know, it was a push press. Free Kid also did a push press. Golden one did a push press. And Omar Isaf did a legit strict press. I started the rep from the same position, right? Around the chin level. So let's compare all of them and which ones do look more similar. If his press looks more similar to Omar's, which was a strict press, or if it's more similar to mine, golden ones, and Free Kids, which were all push presses. So let's start the comparison. So slow motion. So this was his. Let's see mine, also slow motion. Looks pretty similar. Let's see Free Kids. Let's see Glorious one. I mean the golden one. And now let's look at Omar Isaf's. Now as you can see, if you notice the start of the rep of mine and Freakins and Alexis and all the ones, notice how the bar is blurry in the beginning, while Omar's isn't. It isn't blurry at the start of the lift. That is because they build like momentum from the leg drive. So to me, his press looks similar to ours than it looks to Omar Isaf's. Now let's look at the actual original video where he did that 225 supposedly strict press. So
AlphaDestiny, and I want to welcome.
So here is the original video. By the way, this was also his 225 overhead press, was also after he had a flu.
It took me 9 months to do that shit. See how happy I was? 225 after having a flu for 2 weeks.
Okay, so he had a flu. He's basically implying that he should be even stronger than that, because most people get weaker after they have a flu. So he's basically implying that he should be able to press even more. Or maybe he's one of those rare cases where he actually gets stronger after he's sick. So maybe that's why he's constantly getting sick. But anyway, let's look at the other reps. Let's say that I'm below average intelligence and I believe him that his camera for some reason stopped working during the rep. So he didn't record the full rep. But let's look at his other reps. Wait, this is 185. Okay, why? Let's look at this. Let's put it in slow motion. Why isn't his 205 warm-up also recorded from the start of the rep? Let's say I believe him that his 225, his camera stopped working or whatever, but now I don't buy it. Like, how come his warm-up with 205 isn't recorded from the start of the rep either? I wonder why. I think that his max back then on strict press was around 205, but if he did a strict press this already, it would look kind of difficult and people would be able to tell that he can't press more, and it would also fatigue him. So he probably did a push press on 205 already. Now, his supposedly previous PR was actually at 205 9 months ago, which he actually says here. let's look at his previous PR of 205. There's actually a video of that. So let's look at this. It's right here.
Look at the rep. So let's look at it together. On rack, okay. There you go, bam, look at that.
Let's look at this again.
Okay, there.
Now, let's put this in slow motion. Now let's look at this. Now I want you to pay attention. I'm going to put a cursor right here, just above his head, and look where his head, his body, and everything is relative to this cursor. So let's start. Oh, looks like Alex just lost a little bit from his height. Let's try again. And now looks like he regained his height. Now there are two possible explanations for this. A, he bent his knees and he actually did a push press. Or B, he somehow magically lost a little bit from his height and then he somehow magically regained it. If it's the latter, then we know why we don't know his exact height. Because we know he's somewhere between 5'3" to 5'6". He's at least 5'3" and no more than 5'6". So it seems that his height somehow fluctuates, so which is why it's somewhere between those. And conveniently from him, he lost a little bit from his height during his strict press. So anyway, be your own judge. It's either one of these two options. Now, if you look at the comments, you actually see people calling him out in a comment section that it was actually not a strict press, that it was a push press. And for example, like this guy, this is not some, what he says, he's not some random troll that doesn't even lift. This is actually a legit strong guy. I mean, you can see on his channel, he is like a really strong, experienced guy. And he's calling me out. And that's the point. Usually guys who are strong and experienced can see through his BS. Most people that believe him are usually novices or teenagers who don't know any better. But you can see, and keep in mind, this was actually way before, again, any of these channels called him out, way before even Blaha called him out. And you can see people calling him out that, you know, no, this wasn't a strict press. And he actually keeps arguing, you can see in the comments, he keeps arguing how it was a legit strict press. And since it was a grinder, despite using strict leg drive, it means back then he was not capable of strict pressing 205. And let me say, back then he was not capable of doing that. Again, just because you can do some lifts now doesn't mean he could do them when he claimed them. And this is also where he claimed that he has a 350 bench. Like he couldn't even strict press 205, yet he claims that he has 350 bench. Like 2 years ago, he claimed a 350 bench. Now, by the way, before a 225 overhead press, he actually already did attempt it. And it's right here. So it was less than 2 months ago. So let's check it out.
Good. And then I'm a cocky bastard. I try to go 225, and you're gonna see what happens. Notice, look at my build, right? I always get it past the head, but I can never lock. I can't lock weights, man. It's
now. Let's look at these 3 attempts in slow motion again. So let's put it in slow motion. So starts right here. So let's look at all the attempts. Now we actually see the whole rep at least the first 2 attempts. Okay, so he already bent his knees a little bit, but it wasn't that bad. Now let's look at the second attempt, and now pay attention to his knees. Look here. As you can see, he clearly bent his knees. Now let's go back. And now pay attention here. to his legs right here in the mirror right here. So let's pay attention here. So as you can see, he clearly did a push press. And let's look at it again. See, he used the leg drive and he still failed it. Now his third attempt, as you can see, this is the start of the rep. Again, did his camera stop working again? Why does the camera constantly stops working during the start of the rep? I mean, why even bother cutting it out? Like, why even bother? I honestly think that his third attempt, he used even a more leg drive than on his second attempt, but it was probably more obvious, which is why he cut it out. And guess what? He actually still failed it. He failed a push press. It's actually less than 2 months before he did it supposedly a strict press. So if he can't even push press it, do you honestly think in less than 2 months he's going to be able to strict press it? Now some people say that because of the pins right here that he didn't have enough space to do a push press. But as you can see, like in his previous video, you saw what kind of technique he used. You don't have to go that low when you're doing a push press. Really, all you need is a very slight bend in the knees, and that's gonna be more than enough to generate enough momentum. Another thing I want you to look at is this part is actually in slow motion. Look at this. And now it's normal speed. So again, this is slow motion and this is normal speed. And if you want more proof for that, look at this guy in the background right here. You will see the way he's moving. Now pay attention to this guy. You will notice that this is in slow motion at first until the lockout. So pay attention to this guy. Let's put it full screen again. So the first part of the rep was in slow motion, and that's because if it was faster, again, it will be more obvious that it's a push press. So it was a slow motion because again, with a push press you build up the momentum, so this part is fast, and then the lockout is the most difficult part. Whereas if you do a regular strict press, it's gonna be hard from beginning. Now I'm going to finish it here, but before I go, I'm gonna show you a tutorial how to do a push press and make it look like an epic strict press. So you're gonna use this song. It's a royalty free. So let's start right here. So this part of the song starts playing when your rep starts, and that's what's going to make your push press, actually a strict press, gonna make it look more epic. So let's take my video and let's start playing the song right at the right time. So we're gonna put it in the slow motion. It doesn't have to be super slow though. And so let's start. Now I want you to actually, the more of you do this, the more epic it's going to be. So I want you to do an actual push press, but make sure that by the time the bar is at the chin level, your legs are fully locked, so nobody can tell it was a push press. You're gonna cut out the part until the bar is at the chin level, and then when the rep starts, you start playing this part of the song I just showed you. and you also put it in slow motion, and that's what's gonna make it look super epic. Now, another thing I want you to do is you're gonna put in description hashtag epic strict press. So let's save the changes. Now you're gonna notice the hashtag is right here, and if I click on it, obviously there are no results. Now it can find my video because it's not public, but I want you to do this, do these epic strict presses with this epic song. So push press and then make it look like a strict press, put a hashtag epic strict press, and the more of you do this, the more epic it's going to be. So I'm gonna show a few more epic strict presses, and I'm just going to end it here. So enjoy.
It took me 9 months to do that shit. You see how happy I was? 225 after having a flu for 2 weeks. And they're saying that my overhead press was a push press. Okay, so for the overhead press thing, it was absolutely not a push press. You want me to apologize for something that isn't true. I spent 9 months building the OHP. It took me from 205 to 225. Okay? The way that I did the overhead press was by using the John Fung technique, which involves setting the pins, okay? You stand up, so the bar will come up a little bit, and then it'll do this, right? So it'll come up like that, and then you overhead press it. That is the technique that I use. It is not a push press. It is an overhead press, and I can make a tutorial showing you how to do it. And you know what? I'm going to put the clip on the screen for you in super slow motion. I slowed it down over 200%. This is the slowest possible clip that you can imagine, okay? And you will very, very clearly see that there is no dipping down of the legs, and you can see where the bar is starting. If it was a push press, it would be much higher, okay? It's not a push press, guys. I swear to you on my honor, and I'm never going to apologize for something that isn't true.
And this is Mickey Mouse stuff, you train or you don't.
What the fuck's your problem?